Whatever the adventure, there's a BMW engineered to take it on. The X3 delivers a striking design with agile performance. The 100% electric i4 packed with pure electric energy. Or the plug-in hybrid X5, an impressive, versatile SUV granting full control on every journey. Choose what powers your next adventure during the BMW Road Home Sales Event. BMW, the ultimate driving machine. Hurry in for exceptional offers through January 2nd. Visit bmwusa.com for details.
Good evening. Welcome to WSBI, your resource for success podcast program, where you get to meet inspiring women-owned businesses from across the country. And now, for your host, Kimberly McElmore.
All right, good evening and welcome to WSBI, your Resource for Success podcast program, where you get to meet inspiring entrepreneurs and women-owned businesses from across the country. I am your host, Kimberly McElmore, President and CEO of the Women's Small Business Initiative, LLC, and award-winning author. And welcome to another night of sharing. With us, we have special guest Nia Wright, founder of the WWEM, LLC, Women Who Educate with Melanin. Nia Wright has put 10 plus years of service into educational field with North Carolina public schools. Ms. Wright holds a bachelor's in early childhood and deaf education from UNC Greensboro and master's in elementary education from North Carolina A&T State University and a postmaster's certificate in school administration from UNC Charlotte. Ms. Wright is currently at UNC Charlotte in their Urban Education Doctoral program. Outside of the educational field, Ms. Wright serves on the executive boards of the Charlotte section and the North Carolina State Coalition of the National Council of Negro Women, Inc. Her most recent endeavor includes becoming an author. In March of 2022, she published the first book, The Epiphany, Sex, Support, and Money, which depicts her triumph through divorce and self-love. Ms. Wright's dedication to the success of scholars and the community's rise to have and wield the power to create spaces for our scholars to thrive will be her legacy. So without further ado, please help me welcome to my platform, Ms. Nia Wright. Good evening, Ms. Nia. How are you?
Good evening. I am doing great. How are you?
I am excited. I'm great. I'm just thrilled to have you on my platform tonight because we have a lot to talk about. And of course, before we dive into the book, I would like for you to tell us a little bit more about who you are and what makes Nia Wright tick.
Right. So first and foremost, I am an educator. By and by, that is who I am. I am currently a hearing impaired teacher. That's what I do during the day. After that, I do a lot of different things that keep me energized. I'm working with children, tutoring, working with adults with disabilities, and then, things at the house that keep me happy, puzzles and Legos and things of that nature. But yeah, so that's me in a nutshell.
Yes, and very educated. I'm sitting here after reading and reviewing your bio, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, when did you have time? That's what I was thinking. I'm like, okay. Love that you love education.
I get it done.
Yes, you do.
Yes.
Yes, you do. But we definitely need more women like you, in our communities. And being in early childhood education is special enough. But when you're doing an education that's involving deaf education as well, is even more special. So we're very thankful for you and very excited to tonight be on a whole different platform of conversation with you now that you're a new author. And I love talking to my authors because I am one. So it's even more exciting to get to know your purpose behind everything that you do as an author. So the book, The Epiphany, Sex, Support, and Money. Oh my goodness. I will tell you, when I got the book, I read it all in one night. I just could not put it down. I had to keep going because everything that you have in this book is life. It's truly hits people in different types of ways. And of course, your story is very different. Everybody has a different story, and your story is focused on divorce and then growing into self-love of the triumph of who you are. So talk a little bit about the whole overview of the book first and why you felt it was so important to give this information to everybody, because that's really something difficult to do when you're talking about a personal experience.
Yeah. So the whole thing came about with just trying to figure out my way through divorce, through something that you feel you failed at, and moving forward, finding myself, really accepting what I wanted versus what I thought I wanted, and learning that, loving me through it, loving me through what we would consider as society a failure, and taking it as a learning lesson and not a failure or mistake. And then my non-negotiables going forward for myself and for any relationship, friendship, spousal relationship that comes into my life going forward.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And the thing I love that you just said is that, going through divorce should not be looked at as a failure, but we all understand that when we get married, our goal in life is to make your one and only marriage, right? Nobody sits down and says when they get married, and at the end we're going to get divorced. So that's the other thing we got to prepare for, right? So it's just, to have that feeling, and then to realize that when you start to look at yourself back into the mirror, you start to realize there's so many different things that you either could have done differently. There's so many different things you realize that, it's not your fault, but these are lessons learned. And I always think of it as part two is that as we are younger growing up and as young women, what is the process that we have to go through to engage in dating and understanding even the process of that, and which leads us 90% of the time into this is how we think marriage is supposed to be, and this is why we take the steps that we take. So talk a little bit about that feeling and what you kind of felt you went through as you were younger and dating, and then realized, you're in your first marriage, and then suddenly you're out of that first marriage.
Whatever the adventure, there's a BMW engineered to take it on. The X3 delivers a striking design with agile performance. The 100% electric i4 packed with pure electric energy. Or the plug-in hybrid X5, an impressive, versatile SUV granting full control on every journey. Choose what powers your next adventure during the BMW Road Home Sales Event. BMW, the ultimate driving machine. Hurry in for exceptional offers through January 2nd. Visit bmwusa.com for details.
When you work in tech at Cox, you get to do meaningful work every day. You get to be the biker who codes as fast as he rides, crafting advanced tech solutions that transform car buying. Or a guitarist who develops harmonious apps and websites, connecting people to people and businesses, all in real time. A savvy soccer mom running solution sets as passionately as she runs gameplays. Be the super secret keeper, designing cybersecurity systems to protect private data and websites. A planet protector, expanding EV battery life and inventing more ways to build a better future for all. When you work in tech at Cox, you get to do career-defining work that solves the greatest problems of our time. Join us and connect to work that improves lives, including yours. Learn more about our family of businesses at cox.career/tech.
Right. So I think as young ladies, as women, and even our gentlemen on the other side, you have this list in your head of what you want and what you think you want in a person that you're going to date, that you're going to marry. And so this person comes in your life and checks off all the boxes, right? And so you're like, well, this has to be it. But at the inner core of yourself, you feel like, I know they check off everything, but something just doesn't feel right. But you're like, but they check off everything. So, you go for it, you go with it, and then you get to the wedding day, you say, I do, and now you're stuck, quote unquote, stuck with this person, and you're like, no, my gut was right. This is not what I really wanted. And so now you're trying to figure out, how do I make this work? Do I make it work? Do we stay? Do we figure this out? And then if we choose not to, how do you navigate that? And how do you accept that even though that's what I thought, I've changed and I've learned what I really wanted, and that's okay, but this isn't what I want. How do we get out of this? Like, how do we get out of this so that we both are okay on the other end at some point? And so that's just really what it was as I went through. Was I learned that those lists that we make, a lot of times when we're younger, are superficial. They're things on the outside that you're looking for when you really should be looking for things inwardly of people, to get to know them on that level, because those superficial things can fade. You can only hold the facade for so long, especially when you're living with someone. Those things, those facades, those drapes, those doors, they open and close, all of that, and you get to see the real person. And if you haven't met that real person on the inside, you may find out one day that you didn't like them, or they don't like who you really are. And so that was a journey of going through, and where I am now, of really finding out who I am on the inside and what I want somebody else to have on the inside.
Exactly. But, what you said was profound. I mean, we live in a world of conformity, right? So the conformity piece comes in with that checklist. And like you said, you think you're doing everything right because this is what we're told. Make sure you check mark this. They got to have a job. They got to have this. They got to have that. Then all these things that are pertinent information. I'm not going to say that it's not important to know these things, but at the same token, that when you're dating in that dating realm, there's no way you actually can get to know a person thoroughly enough to understand what are you really going to get at the other end, because you're not living with them, right? But when you have that opportunity to live with them, and to really see, like you said, that facade is no longer there because they can only hold up for so long. You get to see that other side of the individual that you thought was that man, or if it's a woman, that woman who truly, that cares about you or that really loves you, but then you really see that there's a different side. So I think everybody goes through that process because, I think it's important, like I said, to do the checklist, but it's hard to decide, what's important. Am I going to live with this person first before I decide to marry them? Because not everybody believes in that, right? So you have to try to figure out how to balance that. And in your process of going through the marriage, you found out things much sooner than the average person would have in any relationship, because usually we don't start seeing these signs until several years down the line. But for you, it was pretty instant. How long did your relationship last?
So we dated for about a year and a half, almost 2 years before we got married. And then we got married in April of 2016. And by February of 2017, it was mentally and emotionally, we were both gone. I eventually moved out in July of 2017.
Wow.
So it wasn't, we didn't make it a full year before we knew it was over.
Right. That is, I know it, and it sounds funny now, right? But during the time that you're going through that process, there's no way in hell that can be funny. That has got to be the most destructive thing that anybody can go through, because it happened all so fast. It's so draining, the emotional side of just being a human being and as a whole, and then having to deal with all the other pieces because you're married to this individual. That had to be a whole lot for you to deal with. But at the other side of this, you came out expanding into this beautiful butterfly and realizing that, hey, what's more important is me. So talk a little bit about the journey of the self-love. And then when you get done with that, we're going to start diving into the book.
Yeah, so I tell anybody and everybody, I don't wish divorce on anybody. Everybody's divorce is different, so I definitely don't wish that journey on anybody. But I will say divorce for me was the awakening and breakthrough I needed. And people like to say they can go back, if they could go back and change it. I necessarily wouldn't change it. It led me to where I am and where I am now. So when I moved out, and within that first year and a half, I gained like 50 pounds. I was living in conditions that, were livable, but not to the standard that I'm accustomed to living. I was still going to church. That was a very big part of keeping that consistency. I was still going to work. Things were a little bit different. I had friends on both sides at work and church to help me through. I got a mentor through church. She's still in my life, Miss Keisha, who was phenomenal in loving me where I was, to help me see who I was, and helping me accept where I was and who I was, and love me as that person, and then love me to being whole, and to work my way through that. So finding, what was the real reason? Why did you get married in the first place? Did you really love him, or did he just check off all the boxes and this was the next step in life? Right. Those things, what could you have done? So I tried to, as I told the story, I tried really hard not to make it like bash him or say negative things about him. We all did what we did, and we've all moved on and found what we needed. But it takes two people to tango and two people in a story. So this is my version of the story and how I saw it. And there were things that I could have done better. And so learning from that, learning how to love me so that I can love someone, and finding out what I like. Did I even like those things that I had on my list, or was that just something that I thought should be on my list? So just working through all that. I was in therapy. I had already been in therapy prior to getting married, and so it just continued, and therapy turned into something different once I was going through that and going through divorce. We kind of hit some different topics than what we had been talking about, and started really diving into what Nia wanted, what she liked to do, what she didn't like to do. Was I doing things for other people? Was I doing things because this is what I was told I was supposed to do, or did I really like doing this? Do you really like eating cake, or is this what's always been offered to you, so you just eat it? So it was a lot of digging through all of that and finding that, and having the people around me that supported me as I loved my way through this, and to get to where I am now. So, yeah.
Wow. Yeah. And I love the fact that you realized that you needed that support system, and you had your support system in your church. You had your support system outside of the church. There's all these things that, we need, and we don't always necessarily believe that we need them, and we're going through certain things in our lives. And, as you say, divorce is not something that we wish upon anyone. I've been there, done it more than once. And it's like, it's the cruelest thing in the world that you can actually go through, especially when you believe that you actually love somebody, or either the vice versa, right? So, but when you start to realize who you are as an individual and what's most important for you, that's when you start to blossom. And that's exactly the steps that you took to understand that, I need to look at A, B, C, D, and F to figure out, how did I get myself here? Is this really who I am? And now that you figure that out, like I said, you have blossomed into something so much more that you probably didn't even know was there. And if you knew it was there, you didn't realize how to bring it out. But now that it's out, and now that we have this beautiful butterfly, right here in front of us, you have developed this amazing book. And this book I love because it just hits everything that we all have to encounter when you're in a relationship, whether you're married or not, right? So the thing that I want to focus on tonight, because what I don't want to do is we're not going to give all the things away in this conversation, because then people will go out and buy the book, right? But I want people to, truly be able to just kind of listen to what we're talking about and realize that they need to get this book and go back and take that self-check of themselves. And the first topic that I really want to focus on, and the reason why I'm picking this first, is the sex. And I think this is an important topic to talk about, because 90% of the time, most people, when they get into a relationship, they use the sex as a part of the reason why they think they're in love. So, and it's also the reason, a part of the things that you actually put as the first chapter within the book. So talk about that chapter and why that you felt that the sex part is important to focus on first.
So just like you said, sex is something that when we get in relationships, generally people start having sex before they really get to know someone. So the emotions, the endorphins, whatever it is, all of that gets mixed in, and you have this fantasized view of what's really happening and of this person that you don't really know yet. And so breaking down sex, even though that might not be my top priority, breaking down sex first seemed like the best thing to do, so that everyone can get a full view of where you stand on that topic, as well as the things that encompass sex. So it's not just the physical bumping of body parts, as I said, but it involves the emotional part, the intimacy part that's not about bumping parts, but are you able to provide intimacy? Are you able to get intimacy outside of, in between the sheets? Can you find that? Do you know what sex is? Do you understand what it does? And those type of things. So because when we get in relationships, we do generally tend to start that first. We also, as a society, are very sex oriented. And so I just felt that was the best subject to hit first.
Exactly. And then I will say, this is my personal opinion, that is a view that majority of women, when they look at sex, it's it's more just emotional than it is this, hey, we're having sex. And so they turn that emotion into, oh, I think I'm in love. Everything turns into something completely different than realizing that, like you're saying in the book, and I love the phrase, and I'm going to read it directly, and you just said it a few minutes ago, sex is not just about the physical aspect of bumping private together or using other objects to bump together. That is exactly where the problem is 99.9% of the time when people start to get connected with each other, because it's all that they do is relate the relationship, the feeling, oh, this feels good, this is great, this is what I've always wanted, and then turn it into, next thing you know, oh, I'm in love, the next thing you know, let's move in together, next thing you know, we're going to get married, next thing we're going to have, but they've forgotten about all the other things and all the other pieces that come with that, and have utilized sex as their main goal of why that person is right for them.
This holiday, BMW has reunited 3 members of the family at the BMW Road Home Sales event. The Agile X3, engineered for any adventure. The plug-in hybrid X5, commanding the streets with unmatched presence. And the all-electric i4, charging into the future with impeccable performance. Hurry in to find what powers your journey at the BMW Road Home Sales event. BMW, the ultimate driving machine.
Visit Valley BMW Center today for attractive lease and finance offers.
When you work in tech at Cox, you get to do meaningful work every day. You get to be the biker who codes as fast as he rides, crafting advanced tech solutions that transform car buying, or a guitarist who develops harmonious apps and websites, connecting people to people and businesses, all in real time. A savvy soccer mom running solution sets as passionately as she runs gameplays. Be the super secret keeper, designing cybersecurity systems to protect private data and websites. A planet protector, expanding EV battery life and inventing more ways to build a better future for all. When you work in tech at Cox, you get to do career-defining work that solves the greatest problems of our time. Join us and connect to work that improves lives, including yours. Learn more about our family of businesses at cox.career/tech.
Yes. And so you've got to really understand, what sex is and what sex is for you. Because some people use sex as a drug to help, like people drink themselves into not feeling things. People have sex to not feel things. So really understanding the purpose of sex in your life as you enter into these relationships.
Exactly. So talk about one of the breakdowns of this process, because you had 4 parts of the understanding of sex. And I believe one was the intimacy that you talked about just a few minutes ago. My brain just went dead on the other ones. So there was intimacy, spiritual, emotions, and the physical side of it. So talk about one of those, break it down to us and make us understand, why is it so important to have these 4 blinders open instead of just being blind with them closed?
Okay, so as you talk about sex, there's the different aspects to sex when you start having it, whether you're thinking about it or not. You have the aspect of, the physical part. We're coming together. We're figuring out what each other likes. And then that's a part to it, too. Sometimes we figure out what each other likes, and sometimes we just do what we like, and therefore there's a breakdown. Mm-hmm. You have the emotional part, like you said. Generally speaking, women tend to be a little bit more emotional when it comes to sex. We tend to connect a little bit more that way, more than men, but there are some men that have that same effect to the level that women do. And so you have to kind of check and balance, are my emotions tied to the sex or are they tied to the person? Mm-hmm. And then you go into the spiritual aspect where, and not everybody might not believe that, but I believe that there's a spiritual aspect to sex, especially if you're with the same person for a while. There's a level of comfort. You can start being a little bit more vulnerable and start opening up. And so there's a level of you that you may not even know had been there, and they may not have known had been there, but there's a level of connection that's on a deeper level. So that was the spiritual. And then I believe the last one was mental. Mm-hmm. For me, and again, I try to speak for me. and not speak for others. But the mental aspect is, if my mind is not turned on, then generally the rest of me is not going to be turned on. It might look like it is, but generally the rest of me is not going to be turned on. So having that connection piece to be able to be mentally stimulated in that way so that the rest of me can follow is also important. And a lot of times, like I'm a very sex positive person, believe in finding what you like and teaching others what you like, because nobody's a mind reader. But listening to a lot of sex positive speakers and, teachers talk or whatever, there's different parts that all of those have to be, on the positive side for sex to be a positive experience. If one of them isn't, then not all of that experience you would have enjoyed. And so figuring out where you land in all of that, where your partner lands in all of that, and then figuring out y'all together is a big piece of this sexual aspect.
Absolutely. Yeah. And really, in what you're saying overall is the important part of it is that communication piece. It's one thing to assume that all of these pieces are coming together. They may be in one aspect of the individual, but it may not be on another aspect of the other individual that you're collaborated with, in that relationship. So having to try to understand how all those pieces come together is very crucial. In order for, I think, the success of any relationship. So what do you say to those people who may come up to you and say, hey, I read your book and, I enjoy what you're talking about, but I've had this feeling all at once. Do you believe in love, I guess, at first sight type scenario? Because there are many people who feel that they have all those feelings that you may be describing and think that the person that they're with is their life partner. How do you have them really, think what they're really feeling?
Right. So I don't necessarily disagree with the statement of love at first sight. What I say is, even if you feel that it is love at first sight, you still need to dive into all of those areas. You still need to do your research on yourself and your research on that person and make sure that what you feel and what you think you're feeling is really there. Because sometimes we feel like it's there and we want to believe it's there because it's so strong. But when you get digging in and diving into this person or even yourself and how you feel about this person, it's not there, or there's things that are lacking that you may have missed. So don't disregard the feeling of love at first sight. Just make sure you dive in and delve in. It doesn't have to take a year, doesn't have to take 3 years, but you need to give it some time and really dive in and learn about that person and learn about yourself and how y'all connect to make sure that what you feel and what you think you're feeling is actually what you're feeling.
Exactly. I agree with that 100%. Because I think a lot of times, like I said, we live in a world of conformity, and people will always instantly tell you, oh, well, don't jump into that too soon. Don't do this and don't do that. But the key is that a lot of times the advice that people are giving you and providing, it's their advice. It's meant for them. It's not always going to be meant for you personally to really understand what it is you're dealing with, who you're dealing with, and why you have the certain feelings that you have. And then how do you move forward with those feelings without feeling like you're being judged? Because in most people's lives, that you have this pattern of, like I said, you got to get, you're going to be with them for a year, get engaged, and then another year you're going to do this, and the next thing you're going to be married, next thing you're going to have a baby. All these things that society has taught us throughout our life, that these are the right steps to take, are not necessarily the right steps to take. So I like the part that when you talk about the fact that you have to understand who you are. And when I believe if you don't know who you are and know what you want, personally, I think it makes it more of a struggle to really value the relationship that may be right for you.
Correct. Because if you don't know who you are or what you like, then one, you can't tell anybody. You can't teach the person about yourself so that they can love you in a way that you understand. And you technically aren't loving yourself in a way that you can understand because you haven't fully learned yourself to love yourself.
Exactly. And the other thing I like that you have in your book, that after each section of the book, or each chapter of the book, should I say, you have these an area where you make people sit down, and no matter whether they are currently in a relationship, whether it's new, old, beginning, you have them sit down and take these certain steps. Talk about the steps that you have in the book that you think that everybody should do to kind of get a guide of who they are and what they're doing within this relationship, or actually before or while they're in the relationship. that they should check off?
Right. So it's the teacher. It is definitely a teacher in me that after you read something, you reflect on it and see how you can apply it. So it's definitely a teacher in me. But it helps to, put things in perspective. Like if this whole book was talking about how I love myself and how I figured myself out, then me allowing you the space to use it, if you choose, to assess yourself, figure out where you are so that you can better have a conversation. These are conversation starters should you start dating someone, or if you're with someone, that you guys can really have a conversation. Like, I didn't really know I was a 2 in this area, and this is how I feel. How do you feel in this area? Like, to really open that communication piece, as you stated before, that's really vital and key. And then to have this communication piece. If you're not with anybody, but you did this for your self-reflection, this is a good start for you if you're going to therapy, or you have a mentor, to really open up, like, hey, I read this book and I did this and I'm here. Let's talk about this. Help me understand why I'm here and what I'm thinking, and this is what I'm thinking. But if you read something and it touches you, giving you the space to reflect on it, not that you have to implement all of it right now, but to give you a space of reflection, to think about it and really have a place to go back to when you're ready, and in a space to really dive into it, is great. So you analyze yourself before, and then at the end of the chapter, you analyze yourself after that. And again, it opens the door for communication. A lot of people have trouble starting a conversation. I've given you conversation starters.
Right, exactly. But the thing that I like about this is that, like you said, it gives you the opportunity to do that self-reflection. And then I think a biggest problem most people don't want to know or really want to hear is the truth about who they are. What they're bringing to the table, what is really the issues that they may be portraying and onto somebody else, and not even realizing that they're doing that. And that may be part of the reason why that in their relationships, whether it's present or past, they have not been successful. And, that's the hardest thing in the world, is having to look at yourself in the mirror and realize that, you know what, you're not as perfect as you think you are.
Right. Exactly.
And as you go through this process, and like you said, when you've been married and you've been divorced, you really sit down and always think about, what you've gone through and why you've gone through, that process. But the key is it's learning the lessons. So if you're not learning anything, whether you've done this list, 1 time, 2 times, 100 times, then you're going to constantly go in that vicious circle. So talk about that cycle a little bit of what makes people tick and why they feel like they do the things that they do continually, knowing that it is wrong.
Right. So speaking from experience, I learned as I was loving myself through this and trying to figure out who I was, I did a lot of things because it's what I was told or taught to do. And this was the plan. These were the steps. This is what you do. This is how you get here. Not really realizing I don't even know if I really like that. Talking over with friends and things about going to school. I've got a couple degrees on my wall and working on one currently. And do I really like this? So as I was going through this divorce and all of this process for me, I was also trying to figure out what I wanted to get my doctorate in, right? And so what I thought I wanted to get my doctorate in is not what I'm getting my doctorate in. But I love what I'm getting my doctorate in right now is just urban education. Before it was in speech disorders and communication, which is what I do for a living. But that's not where my heart is. My heart lies in urban education with our minority students and building them up and finding ways to connect so that learning can happen. And that is where my passion is. And so, again, like I said, I don't wish divorce on anybody, but it was definitely an eye-opener experience for me to figure out me and what I wanted to do, not what everybody else was pushing me to do, even though they were lovingly pushing me that way because I'm always in school, I'm always learning, this is what you do. It wasn't what I wanted to do and what I loved to do. And so I was able to figure all of that out through this process. So again, sometimes we just have to take a step back and really figure out, is this what I want or is this what I've been told that I wanted, and really work through that.
Exactly. Definitely the key to anything. And, and like I said, it's not just the personal side of your life that's become successful. It's even your professional side of your life, that having that conversation with yourself, taking the steps you need to take to check out this list that you provided. It gave you that opening. It's another way of eye-opening, of understanding of who you really are, and then because whatever happens to you personally, like I said, you bring that on to the individual that you are related to in a relationship. And I think that's important that most people sometimes don't think about the fact that, especially when things aren't always going right, it's that I'm going to point fingers at you. Well, the key is that, like I said, it's a two-way street. There's no relationship where it's just all one person is bad. There's something there that has enhanced that situation, whether, it's not about whether you did something bad, but realizing that who you are and what role that you played within the relationship is really where that epiphany comes from as well. So, like I said, I don't want to dive any further into the book because we could go through this whole book tonight, and I know we could have some great conversation on it, but I want people to definitely take the time to get this book, The Epiphany, Sex, Support, and Money. It is absolutely the main points of what we all go through in any relationship. And I think it's important that people value who they are and realize the importance of the relationships that they are in, if you're in one currently. And if you're going into one, take what the necessary steps that you need to have to realize what it is that you want, who you want to be with, and why you want to be with them. But I want you to also tell us, before we end this evening, because we're already over time, I can't believe how quickly this even went, but I want you to tell us, where, if you have any book signings coming up or when your next book is going to be coming out, go ahead and share your information of also where they can purchase this book.
Yeah, so definitely. So my book is, you can find it through my publisher, Blue Shades Publishing. They have a website, and my book is being sold solely through them currently right now, mainly because it's the best way that I feel is working for me. And I like small businesses. I like Black-owned businesses, and so it's being sold through them. The shipping happens. I still ship all of my things, so you get little goodies when you buy, but they will be shipped out. The next book signing, I'm not currently doing book signings. I am doing a couple events where I vendor at here in Charlotte, North Carolina. I have done one back in Virginia, and there may be more to come. As far as new books, there will be a part 2 to the Epiphany. Not sure if it's going to be called the Epiphany 2, but there will be a part 2, hopefully sometime next year, maybe around the same time, March. I do have some goodies I'm thinking about releasing before the end of the year, a children's book of such before the end of the year is up, so, right before Christmas, and everybody can have something good for their kiddos. But there's more to come. I do have other things. So I've had issues with a stalker. So look out for that series that'll eventually come out. And my joys and things of going through that and learning the legal system. Mm-hmm. So this is not the one and done for Nia. There's more to come.
Well, I'm definitely looking forward to it. And for those who don't know, I do know this young lady. So, to realize, everything that you've gone through and all the things that you're currently doing, I've never been prouder. I mean, you're like the daughter that I've never had. So, so that's even better. So I just love you to death. But, for you to, like I said, take something so personal and to bring it out for everybody to learn from and to listen. And even though it's your story, there's always someone who can relate to the story and can realize that it may be you, but it's also them. So, I thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule, to come on and talk to us and share your story. And, I can't wait to see you again. We'll be seeing each other soon. But at the end of the day, for those who want to learn more, like I said, about this book and want to purchase the book, you want to go to Blue Shades. We'll make sure that we have, the information available in the DM, so you will be able to reach out and get that book and, like I said, get all the other goodies that come with it. And definitely looking forward to you here in your future. But again, I want to thank you for coming on the show tonight. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. And of course, we'll have you back when you have your next book out and any other things you may be having going on in the community. And again, for everybody else, I hope you enjoyed this evening's show. It's definitely been an eye-opener, and I hope that you learned what triumph really looks like. And after divorce and the process of self-love, that's the most important part of the conversation. And so it always leads me to ask my listeners, what does triumph look like for you? What does it really mean to you? How do you see yourself and what have you learned about who you are? If you need to have this conversation and you want to learn more about who yourself, you want to share your story, reach out to me anytime at Kimberly at WSBILC@gmail.com, and let's chat about your dreams and let's turn those dreams into gold. If you want more of your resource for success, monetary donations to support the podcast are now accepted on Cash App, or you can go to PayPal or Good Pods tip jar, or go directly to the website at www.wsbilc.com. Again, we would like to thank you all for listening to us tonight. We'll be back next week with more amazing guests. Be sure to follow us on iHeartRadio or wherever you listen to your podcast. But until then, enjoy the rest of your evening and good night.
Good night, everyone. We will be back next Thursday evening at 7 p.m. Follow us on Spreaker, www.spreaker.com/user/WSBI. View our new WSBI website anytime at www.wsbillc.com and on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram.
This holiday, BMW has reunited 3 members of the family at the BMW Road Home Sales event. The Agile X3, engineered for any adventure. The plug-in hybrid X5, commanding the streets with unmatched presence. And the all-electric i4, charging into the future with impeccable performance. Hurry in to find what powers your journey at the BMW Road Home Sales event. BMW, the ultimate driving machine.
Visit Valley BMW Center today for attractive lease and finance offers.
When you work in tech at Cox, you get to do meaningful work every day. You get to be the biker who codes as fast as he rides, crafting advanced tech solutions that transform car buying, or a guitarist who develops harmonious apps and websites, connecting people to people and businesses, all in real time. A savvy soccer mom running solution sets as passionately as she runs gameplays. Be the super secret keeper, designing cybersecurity systems to protect private data and websites. A planet protector, expanding EV battery life and inventing more ways to build a better future for all. When you work in tech at Cox, you get to do career-defining work that solves the greatest problems of our time. Join us and connect to work that improves lives, including yours. Learn more about our family of businesses at cox.career/tech.